This is the Talent, Sales, and Scale Show. What would you say the biggest mistakes that most new managers make?
Still doing the job.
Yes.
Yeah.
Explain that a little bit more deeply, because you're dead spot on there.
Yeah. So you're not responsible for the job. You're responsible for the people responsible for the job, right? That's Simon Sinek 101. I saw somebody actually post the other day, oh, here's a great way to, there's so much bull crap on LinkedIn now. People are just trying to be thought leaders and industry disruptors. But somebody said, oh, here's a great way to motivate your team. Compete with the manager competitions where you'll do a week of outreach with your team. You know what? If you're doing your job well and you're actually valuable to your company as an SDR manager, you don't have time to do the job, right? You should be doing other things. That is one of the dumbest things I've ever heard. Also, you can't motivate anybody. It's impossible. All you can do is operate at the highest level possible
100%.
and hope that people will rise to the occasion. Almost inspiration, right? That's the good old Jimmy V from Cutting Down the Nets. You plus success equals motivation. Yeah. You just get out of bed every day and say, I'm going to make Bryan the best person possible. And hopefully your players, your coaches, your assistant coaches, your family, everyone around you sees that and wants to operate in the same fashion, because they're like, we want what Bryan has. You know what I mean? That's how you motivate people. But
yeah, it's really diving into knowing your people well enough that you understand what their individual motivation is, because you can't motivate. It's breaking rocks in prison. I can supervise you and mandate you do things for a time until you quit, or I turn my back and go on vacation. That doesn't work long term. However, if I'm the leader and I truly genuinely care for my people and I identify what is it, what's their why, what are they working for, and then everything is to, hey, you wanted XYZ, here's the pathway to do that. If you're not doing that, did you really want that? Or right? And so it changes the fundamentals of it completely. I couldn't agree with you there more. So stop doing the job. Your job is to delegate and elevate, not do. Is that right?
Yeah. And I hear that delegate phrase a lot. I don't even know how much. I feel like delegation is more for like VPs to their frontline managers and second line managers. I don't know how much I would consider, showing an SDR how to do the job and like coaching them, delegating, as much as it is like, you're supposed to be their resource. You're supposed to go at bat for them. You're supposed to review the calls that don't get qualified by AEs and then take it to the VP or director of sales and go like, hey, would love some feedback on why this wasn't qualified. So maybe I can prevent so-and-so rep from booking similar opportunities in the future for account executives. Oh, you know what? I actually reviewed it. The AE dropped the ball here. It is qualified. Now you just help that person's quota. You need to be an advocate for your SDRs. You need to be not afraid of promoting the good ones, because they're going to leave your company if you don't. And it looks a lot bad. It looks a lot worse on an SDR manager if you lose your top performer to another company than not pigeonholing their promotion to AE. So that's like another thing. Like, enable your team, be an advocate for them, support them, be the knowledge base that they need, and be empathetic. You're not making cold calls anymore. You're not sending emails. You shouldn't be doing that. You're there to support the people that are doing that.
Yeah, and put some clarity on the delegate idea. So I think you learn how to delegate at the management level so you can get to the VP level. So an easy delegation at this level might be, okay, got it. Hey, instead of me doing all the call reviews, I'm going to ask you to do this. I'm going to delegate you, review this, and I want you to vidyard you reviewing this with comments in this, and then share that with me. So that's a delegation of my job of reviewing, which I'm going to continue to do. But if I get them to watch their own tape, they're going to learn a lot more quickly, because they typically aren't listening to themselves. And it's amazing the stupid things. I go back and I listen to some of the things I said. I'm like, oh my gosh, it was exact opposite of what I should say. I wasn't even thinking that. I was thinking the exact opposite. So that's kind of what I have the idea of delegating, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And it helps them be more intentional, right? Because if I'm just furnishing everything to you, it's like, oh, you're a micromanager. But if you're putting your stamp on something and saying, here's my result of my effort, you're like offering that up instead of being told what it is. It's the same thing with activity. That's why, even though like HubSpot, Salesforce, Outreach, even though they have these tools that measure activity, I give reps activity sheets. I give them activity sheets, because guess what? Like you said at the beginning of the call, when you write stuff down, you're like, I'm old school, hang tight for me. Same thing. Yeah. That's why you're successful, Bryan, because that part of that old school mentality of I write crap down on paper. Like, I write shit down on paper, man. Like, I think on paper, I do everything on paper. you need to do that still. Like it's proven that people do not retain knowledge as well when they type it as when they write it down. Same thing with activity trackers. Write that stuff down and then furnish it. Hey, this 8 hours that you just paid me for with a $60,000 base salary I'm getting as an SDR, this is what I did with that time.
Yeah.
Because when that doesn't line up with the expectation, it's like, well, what were you doing with your time? And they feel weird about it. And so it helps drive that behavior to not want to experience that feeling.
I learned this quote yesterday from Amy Hrevovic. I can't pronounce her name, but she said this: "Think in ink." Right? I thought, oh, that's brilliant, right?
Oh.
So if you can think in ink, it sinks in there a little bit more.